Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is Kid Nate and Zane Simon of BloodyElbow.com coming at you in the aftermath of UFC 180, Bellator 131, and even a little bit of World Series of Fighting 15. Zane, what do you think of the overall night of fights?
All told, like, it sucks when you have to like mash everything together like that and try to maintain it. It makes it for a really hectic pace. So I can't say like I got like overall I think it was really pretty great. If you put everything together as one big like fight event, it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
But it's really hard to take any like one feeling away from it just because the event like everything's so frazzled and stretched out, like your attention's so unfocused.
yeah, it was hard to really sink your teeth into anything, but I felt like the staggered timing of the pretty incredible Fabricio Werdum finish of Mark Hunt right before the Tito Bonnar fight starts on Bellator was pretty perfect. And so I was able to focus on the headliners of the last two cards. Gave World Series of Fighting short shrift. I think that they were odd man out tonight, definitely, but still they seem to have had some pretty good action. I saw a tiny bit of Okami against Branch, but I did not see David Branch knocking him out. And then Tito and Bonnar was a pretty crappy fight, but I was interested just because it's Tito and Bonnar, and I know who they are. And
Oh yeah, I mean, you could see if you were on Twitter how many people were watching that. But everybody was hating it. Like I said that it looked like a fight should be taking place at 4:30 in the afternoon at a Denny's. But like, but it was there to be hated. That's what it was for. Like it, I'm sure even Bellator knew like, as long as you're watching this fight, no matter what you think of it, we're happy.
yeah, they're part of the night. People were paying attention. The traffic for the Bellator post was huge across the network. But and the thing was, the UFC card was so thin that the only thing that really happened was Werdum and Hunt put on a really great two-round fight. I mean, I think that was about as good as you could possibly expect that matchup on short notice for Mark
Mhm.
Hunt to go. Hunt acquitted himself really well, but then dived into a knee. And I'm still trying to figure out what Hunt thought he was doing when he was leaning down and in.
I think he was probably trying to slip in and hit an uppercut or a big overhand, just kind of ducking it off his punches. But I think the other thing of that is that, well, we saw Hunt pacing himself really well. Like he did a lot in the first round. Then he's starting to pace himself, and it's like, okay, it looks like he's pacing himself a little. But maybe if you're Fabricio Verdum in there and you're looking at Hunt, you're saying, you know what, he's not pacing himself. He's gassed. Like,
Yep.
and he could see that Hunt was not, like he wasn't about to turn on some huge burst of offense. He didn't have that next gear available to grab down, and was just waiting for to get his breath and get that right shot. And when you got a guy who's just waiting in front of you, you can go for some big highlight thing that is a big low percentage knockout shot, and that's what he did, and he hit it. And credit to him, it worked.
It sure did, and he was getting the crap beat out of him in the first round, and it makes a rematch kind of intriguing, although the clock is ticking fast on Mark Hunt, but I'd like to see it at lower altitude when Hunt has time to train for the fight. Could be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean it. I don't think we're gonna see that rematch
It
ever.
seems
So.
extremely unlikely unless Cain Velasquez uh, injures himself again and can't fight
And if
Verdun.
if that happens, they're gonna put Verdum versus Junior Dos Santos. Almost certainly, that's the
Oh
fight
yeah,
they're
you're
gonna want
right,
to
and
make.
and and I don't think Junior Dos Santos knocks him out quite as quickly as he did the first time, but I still think that he knocks him out.
There's certainly a lot of danger there. I mean, nothing else we've seen. I think there's every reason to expect that Verdum is going to do some wild and not necessarily intelligent things early in his fights.
Yeah,
And um, against certain kinds of opponents, Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos most particularly, that's not a good idea.
no, no, but that sets up the possibility of a Kane Junior Dos Santos fourth match if Kane. I don't know if Kane were to get hurt and get stripped of the title like Dana White's threatening to do. I wonder if he would be back at all. But if Dos Santos becomes the interim champion, it does raise a specter of a fourth Cain Velasquez Junior Dos Santos fight, which I know anybody that loves Junior Dos Santos does not want to see. So we'll see. But let's run through the night's results. Quick take on World Series of Fighting. Yushin Okami got knocked out. Dave Branch retained his title. Impressive fourth round TKO. I missed the big knockout, but Branch was the guy I'd written off as the most boring guy in the UFC. Made very little impression in his UFC run, beating a guy, Yushin Okami, who once fought Anderson Silva for the UFC title. In the catchweight fight that was supposed to be the lightweight title, Justin Gaethje beat Melvin Guillard, who came in 5 pounds overweight, got a split decision win. Saw a little bit of that. What I saw, Melvin did not look good. Women's strawweight fight, Jessica Aguilar, the champion, had a unanimous decision win against Kalindra Faria, but I thought Faria surprised me at least and won a couple rounds. And one round I got to check out the corner of my eye. I thought Faria won. And then George, since he's Brazilian, George Patino, the legendary Macacao, beat Eric Reynolds by unanimous decision. So pretty awesome to see Patino winning. Zane, have you seen the Macacao Pele series from the 90s?
I've seen maybe small parts of it, but
You really, I would highly recommend watching those fights. Those were absolute fucking classics.
Yeah,
but anyway, but then let's run through, I guess the UFC prelims, which were better than I expected. Marco, go ahead.
Well, if one thing I just want to get out of here before we skip over World Series of Fighting, even though I didn't get a chance to watch it, just between doing Bellator and then live tweeting UFC as well. I think Branch Okami is a perfect example of like the Bisping Rockhold on a much lesser scale, or who was it? OSP versus Shogun.
Yeah.
Like if you scale that back, but you're still using the same math. I mean, Okami's been around since 2002, so he's well into the late stages of his career. And for as much as we'd like to have written, as much as we wrote off Branch, and he was never a big, exciting, hot prospect that we're just like dying to see, he's only been fighting since 2007, so. He's a guy who's just like in the prime of his career right now. And when you match up two fighters like that who are equally physically gifted, which I think is reasonable to say that Branch and Okami are, you're basically setting one of them up. You're setting a guy like Okami up for a really hard fall, which
they got. And so, the UFC's not crying over Okami and Fitch, and fans really don't have much to say when these guys get cut by the UFC and then proceed to lose their way through the World Series of Fighting. But, it is what it is. I don't know. I mean, Dave Branch was already the champion, so you can't really fault it, as they weren't feeding Okami to Branch. They were giving Okami a title shot, and it is what it is. Sad to see Yushin Okami going out, but that's what happens to every fighter in their career. So, but yeah, let's go to the UFC prelims, and we'll talk about the Bellator main card, and then go back to the UFC main card. But nothing really stuck out to me. I didn't think that the tough Latin America fights were quite as bad as I had feared they would be. But still, the most interesting fight was Jessica Eye and Leslie Smith. Jessica Eye just pasted her, destroyed her ear, pulled it was like James Thompson versus Kimbo, but worse, or Sakuraba when he got his ear kicked off. Leslie Smith did not want to quit despite her ear falling off her head. I mean, Jessica looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, she's got the physical gifts, and that's, right now in women's MMA, and in most of MMA even, that's going to carry you over a lot of opponents, having just the pure athleticism. She was faster, and she has good basic combination striking. She throws like 1-2 leg kick, 1-2 leg kick, 1-2 leg kick, and that's basically her game.
Yep.
And the thing is, like, I like Smith. I thought she could take this by being the better pressure fighter and being the more diverse striker, but she looked several steps slower. And that's...
Yeah, I mean, she was like doing the time warp and getting just pasted in there by a much faster Jessica. She did crack her like once.
Yeah.
it wasn't enough. I should mention the featherweight fight with Gabriel Benitez and a suspiciously stained Humberto Brown. The guy maybe dropped a dookie in his drawers. It seemed like a diuretic sort of leak. Ghastly stuff. Ghastly stuff. So we've got to wallow in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Maybe the UFC, the Tough Latin American prelims weren't god awful, but they were really bad. I
They
mean, they
were
were still
the
really
fighting
bad.
the guys were enthusiastic, and that was about the best you could say for them. Sloppy. They went through a variety of fighting phases, though. You saw a lot of ground action, a lot of standing
Yeah.
action.
I mean, they mixed it up everywhere. I think, and like, I feel, there was a guy who was convinced that I was that I was really racist on the BE Twitter account because I was just like, these guys are not good. Like, it was most particular about Yair Rodriguez in the final Tough Latin America finale fight, and he just like everything he does is low percentage. He's a great athlete, like obviously great athlete, but he's a collection of low percentage moves. Like,
Yeah.
didn't land hardly anything in that fight, but was
Yeah.
throwing all sorts of like cartwheel kicks and spinning back fists and spinning head kicks, and just landed about none of it. But his opponent didn't do anything.
Yeah, that was pretty piss poor. Alejandro Perez also beat Jose Alberto Quinones to take the bantamweight Ultimate Fighter title. But let's move on to Hector Urbina, Edgar Garcia. At least that was quick. It was a nice guillotine choke
Yeah.
from Urbina. Anything to say about that one?
I missed that fight actually.
Yeah,
I was called away suddenly and I missed it as well, and I'm sad. Like I was called away at the exact wrong time. I missed that, and I missed Manhoff Schilling, and I mean, you can't sit Garcia Urbina next to Manhoff Schilling and
no.
say Urbina Garcia was the must watch of those two. Like, I'm devastated about missing Manhoff Schilling.
Yeah, and you should be, because Manhoff got starched. Schilling caught him with a 1-2. They were hooks rather than straights, and oh my God, Melvin was on his way down from the first punch and got caught again. Just brutal. Manhoff came on strong in the first round, though. I gave it to him, and so it was a really fun back and forth fight. There was a brief period where Manhoff got a takedown on Schilling, but otherwise it was all kickboxing and really fun to watch. Nam Pham also got destroyed by Mike Richmond, since we're switching back and forth between Bellator and UFC. Richmond made just Pham looked like he had nothing left in the tank.
Yeah.
It was pretty sad. And then King Mo Lal utterly dominated Joe Vedipo, but it took until the third round to stop a completely one-sided fight.
Yeah, that was an ugly, ugly stoppage. That was one of those times where the first punch in that series lands, and you're like, okay, this is over. And then you're talking like 15 strikes, 20 strikes later. It's like, this is really over,
Yeah, it was poor refereeing. Just Jason Herzog was the ref on that one and did not do that great a job. Let's switch back over to the UFC main card. Welterweight Augusto Montano and Chris Heatherly. This was a terrible fight. The end was kind of fun, but a pretty unbelievable fight to be on the main card of a UFC card.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the. It looked exactly like I thought it would, which is that Heatherly has nothing other than his takedown game, really at all. And he doesn't even have. He's not even a top control guy, so it's not even like once he takes you down, he's going to keep you down. He takes you down. He gets over aggressive, loses his positional advantage, lets you back up, and then okay, he's going to shoot. Like, that's what's going to happen. And credit to Montano for, I thought he fought a good fight. I think of all the guys out that UFC has grabbed out of Mexico for this card, even including Tough Latin America, he's got the most upside. Like, that's the guy they should be pushing.
Yeah, I agree. And he got off to, he got a relative. I'm be curious to see how well this pay-per-view did, but he got to debut on a pay-per-view card. So, although definitely more people watch the Fox Sports 1 card or the Spike card with Bellator, it'll be interesting to see if the UFC pay-per-view gets more viewers straight up than the World Series of Fighting. I mean, obviously you can't compare pay-per-view with
Well, was
straight
it a
cable
pay-per-view in
TV.
Mexico? It wasn't, was it?
Oh well, yeah, no, it was on network TV. It was on Televisa in Mexico, big exposure. So that's definitely a factor to consider, and that's who they were aiming at with this card. Really, was the
Yeah.
Mexican market. Ricardo Lamas looked great against Dennis Bermudez. Bermudez, he submitted him with guillotine choke in the first round. Bermudez just seemed to have nothing for Lamas.
I don't know about that. I thought that like that was the I thought Lamas did not look great, but he fought like that is the perfect encapsulation of a Ricardo Lamas fight, which is he got hit a little, he did all right, he was scrapping, mixing it up, not necessarily getting the advantage everywhere, but he got one tiny like opening, and that's all Lamas needs. I mean, the guy is a really fantastic finisher when he gets an opening. Like
Yeah, he's
that's
got killer instinct for
yeah,
days.
that's really where he shines. And unfortunately for Bermudez, is he's still a guy who leaves a lot of openings in his offense.
Yeah, he wants a Donnybrook. He wants to mix it up and get in a brawl. And Ricardo Lamas is the wrong cat to be fucking around with in that
Yeah,
circumstance. And
yeah,
we called it on the vivisection, I think, and or you did, or Connor did, but it absolutely came true there. Lamas just
yeah. I was betting on Bermudez fighting a little smarter, kind of keeping his head, because I do think like up until the point he loses it all, he's slightly ahead. He's slightly winning the wrestling exchanges. He's slightly winning the kickboxing exchanges. If he keeps that going and keeps that momentum going, he wins the fight. But the truth is, there was definitely a voice right in the back of my head telling me Lamas is going to win this fight.
yeah. I don't know. I thought Lamas started getting those front headlocks and it was troublesome for Bermudez, but pretty impressive. And that brings us to Ultimate Fighter when Kelvin Gastelum continues his undefeated streak. Dominated and submitted Jake Ellenberger in the first round.
Yeah.
Very impressive from Gastelum, I thought.
Yeah, that was one where I was just way off. I thought Ellenberger would look better. I thought he would be. He's the guy who, when Ellenberger has been at his best, he's looked really fantastic. But it's just been a while since he's looked anywhere close to his best, and I really didn't think he'd slipped far enough that he would just get utterly dominated by Kelvin Gastelum. And credits Gastelum. He's on that elite prospect track where
He really is, and he's somebody who just continues to surprise the critics with just great performances. And for Ellenberger, it's his third straight loss. I don't know that they'd cut him. I mean, because he was losing to Robbie Lawler just a fight ago. It's been a pretty much a murderer's row for him in his last three fights, but not looking good. I mean, he's looking like somebody he'll be real happy to keep his UFC.
yeah, I mean, I think they'll probably find a guy who's been on the border of the top 15 that just came off loss. I mean, I know that they've got Eric Silva booked, but somebody in that boat. Maybe if LaFleur or Thatch or somebody like that drops the fight recently, Musoke even coming off his loss to Gastelum.
Yeah.
Somebody who's just outside the top tier, that's got to be the next stop for Ellenberger. And if he loses that fight, then they'll probably get rid of him.
Yeah, and that would be a sad fall. And the scary thing is, for Ellenberger fans, a couple of those names you mentioned, I don't like his chances that much against, say, LaFleur. But we'll see. But let's and Gastelum. I mean, who does he get next? He came into this fight ranked 11th in the UFC rankings, knocked off the number 7 guy. I mean, if you go above Ellenberger, you're looking at Carlos Condit's injured. Matt Brown's got a fight booked. Hector Lombard is scary and out there. He's got a fight booked. Tyrone Woodley. Woodley didn't take the Lombard fight. Do you think that would be a fight that you'd see Gastelum take next?
Yeah, that would be Gastelum's next fight. Because Woodley's not close to a title shot right now. He just lost to Rory McDonald in a terrible fight. He just got a big win over Dong Young Kim coming back around. That would be the fight. If you really want to see Kelvin Gastelum fighting for a title, I mean, I think he could fight for a title next year. He's on that like John Jones, Chris Weidman title run. And
wow.
know,
That's
and like
pretty.
late next year, if he could get 2 wins between now and then, he's got to be right in line for a title shot, and Woodley would be the next stop to do it.
Yeah, and I like his chances against Woodley, but I have a hard time at this point seeing Gastelum up against Lawler or Hendricks, or even GSP on a comeback. Uh,
Well,
but
sure, but I'm not saying he wins necessarily, but he's on the
yeah,
track to get the fight. You know?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, but it's just kind of sort of brings up short to think. I mean, you switch the narrative from the Gastelum perspective of the young up and comer who's been surprising everybody and winning fight after fight, that he was not supposed to necessarily win as handily as he did, and then walks straight into a brick wall like Johnny Hendricks or Robbie Lawler, and sort of gives you a cold shock. But that's the cold shock is what happened to Mark Hunt in the second round. I mean, leaned into a knee, Fabricio Werdum knocked him the fuck out, and it's too bad because Hunt was beating him up pretty bad in the first round. And so your theory is that Hunt was so gassed that Verdum's low percentage move worked aces.
Yeah, that would be my theory. Was that Hunt was already getting really exhausted, very likely. I mean, we're talking short notice at altitude. That's not a stretch to
For
think.
a 40-year-old, yeah.
And
No,
who
I
just spent the
totally, it's
last
a
round?
logical attitude. It just,
Yeah.
he disguised it very well to
Well,
me.
yeah. I mean, he fights at a pace that a gas fighter would fight at anyway. Like
Yeah.
that's normal Mark Hunt pace. But I'm sure like he spent that first round on the like on top of Verdum, rolling around on the ground, trying to throw punches, working hard.
That was dumb. He should not have gone down into Verdum's guard there. I think that might have been a fatal mistake in retrospect. But, overall, a pretty exciting card. But then we got to talk about Tito and Bonnar. Talk about guys that looked like they were gassed. Those guys looked like they were gassed in the first round.
Oh yeah, well, I mean
Yeah.
that's a fight that it looks like that was just bad. That was bad. I mean,
Yeah.
Bonner had the man the boobs going on from his come down off steroid use. I mean, we can say that Bonner like was using like we can say that steroid meant it's because he got busted twice for steroid use. I mean, this isn't a secret of like
No, he was definitely a veteran steroid abuser. But
yeah, I mean that's
what
not
do they do
like
with Bonner from here? I mean, is it worth having him fight King Mo or something like that?
maybe why not? I mean like it's better than King Mo fighting Joe Vitapo.
Yeah,
I
that's for
mean,
sure. I mean, they needed Mo to get a win, which is why they did that.
yeah. Well,
Fine.
Vitapo was a short notice fill-in, and every short notice fill-in today in the light heavyweight division is a blown up middleweight. Like that's what you get is you get middleweights on short notice.
We do need to talk about the Will Brooks Michael
Yeah,
Chandler
Mike Chandler fight.
lightweight fight. Brooks
Mike
held the
Chandler.
title, and the knockout there was one of the weirdest things. Like I didn't see in the replay, you could see the blow that stunned, the punch to the temple that
Huh?
stunned Michael Chandler. But if you're watching it live, I didn't notice it because they were down, and then suddenly Chandler has stopped fighting. It looked sad. It looked like a YouTube video of some guy getting punched on the bus that doesn't want to be in a fight.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the striking and transition that's just so important in MMA. That's becoming more and more part of the game is how what you do with those moments where you're going from one level to another, whether it's on the ground to standing or standing to on the ground. How you work that space in those brief seconds is what's winning fights more and more. But I would not be at all shocked if that punch, and this is all speculation, so this is just what I saw,
Yeah,
would be if I would not be at all shocked if that punch temporarily took away Michael Chandler's vision in one eye,
or maybe both. It's
or maybe
entirely
both,
possible. Yeah, that he could
and
have been
I mean
blinded.
hit him hard, like hit him hard enough that he temporarily didn't know where he was and what was going on, and then realized that he wasn't seeing out of one eye and said, "Oh, I got eye poked, ref, stop the
Yeah.
fight." Like that's what that looked like. Was
It did look like he was calling for the fight to be stopped, or he thought that it should be stopped, but he didn't communicate anything to the ref. that would give him a reason to stop it. And Brooks was even taken in by it. He kind of looked at the ref for a second before he launched into the attack, and then put him away quickly. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a step back for Michael Chandler. I mean, this is a guy who beat Eddie Alvarez, then lost in the rematch, and then was supposed to fight him a third time when Alvarez was injured, and he had to fight Brooks as a short notice surprise. But now he had plenty of time to train for Brooks, and he got finished. So big step backwards for Michael Chandler.
Yeah.
But they announced some fights coming up. They've got Paul Daly fighting Douglas Lima.
Yep.
That sounds like that would make a perfectly natural opponent for Brooks, the winner of that fight.
Well, wait, that's at welterweight though.
Oh, and this is
lightweight.
This is lightweight. God damn it! Who do they have in their lightweight division? They've drained Pitbull.
I don't know. Yeah, they might have to give Patricio. Is that the bigger Pitbull another run?
I believe so. I cannot keep those cats separate, but.
No, I don't know what their next big lightweight move would be there. They probably have a Russian kicking around that's not coming to mind right now.
Yeah, but I was so excited about myself knowing that Daly was there.
No, even as somebody who watches a lot of Bellator, I can't tell. Like that's the thing without the tournament structure anymore.
Yeah.
That was an easy thing about the tournament structure, was that it told you exactly who the next challenger would be, regardless of talent level.
The problem was you didn't care.
Yeah.
And they still might not have booked it. That was the other problem with their tournament structure. But okay, so all in all, we had a UFC fight card that's basically boiled down to 3 or 4 fights. You had the ghastly injury of Leslie Smith, which kind of raises that in the mind. But the top 3 fights, maybe no meaning.
If it had been a prelim opener or like a prelim closer, that's a good fight. But as a pay-per-view main event, it was basically just it was just an easy one-sided beating booked for a guy that you want to push over to a fan base.
Yeah. And so I'm curious to see how big that fan base was. And I'm very curious to see how the Bellator ratings. I mean, I thought Bellator had a pretty good card. You had Manhoff getting knocked out. King Mo getting a win, Namfan getting destroyed, Will Brooks finishing Michael Chandler with a bizarre twist finish, and then the Ortiz-Bonnar fight sucked, but everybody knew it was, but everybody watched it.
Yep.
So at least that's the impression on Twitter among hardcore fans. The UFC bout, Kelvin Gastelum emerging as a hot contender. Again, how many people saw this fight and are going to know that, and how much momentum builds off that. Fabricio Werdum is now the heavyweight champion. At least for a little while, he gets to carry that belt around. He always knows. He's going to know it's got interim written all over it. But
that's a good thing, because Fabricio knows what to do with time in front of a camera. If nothing else, it's good to get more FaceTime on Fabricio Werdum.
Yeah, he's a character. He's famous for some of the UFC's most legendary memes, like "so much cock, this guy." And so we want to get more gold like that out of Fabricio. Yeah. Mark Hunt, though, is also a fan favorite. I mean, definitely on Facebook leading up to the fight was tons of great highlights, tons of great quotes that fans go crazy for. So, just be interesting to see, where Mark Hunt goes from here, who they book him next, and hopefully Cain Velasquez can get healthy and fight Werdum on the next go-round, or he's going to lose his belt. So I'm glad to hear Dana White taking a firm line, but we'll see how he holds that. So that's our show. Any final thoughts, Zane Simon? How would you rate it, UFC versus Bellator head-to-head? Who was the winner of the evening, or do we have to need to see the ratings and pay-per-view numbers before we can determine that?
I think that the end result is you had two very equivalent cards. Like, I was switching back and forth the whole way through. There was never a point where I was just watching only one or only the other. And as weird as that seems, obviously the Bellator main event was much worse than the UFC main event.
It was. But the rest of the card, Bellator more than made up for that.
And here's the other thing. The one thing I want to mention before we get away is Bellator's new production was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
that was pretty remarkable. The way that they're sort of revamping their whole appearance and
Yes.
show, like that's something new.
Well, that's the difference between somebody like Scott Coker, who's got a vision and knows how to entertain people, versus somebody like Bjorn Rebney, who was good at building the nuts and bolts of an organization, but everything in the old Bellator was drab and gray and boring and small time. And Coker made it feel like a big time fight, big arena, big entrances. I mean, with the UFC is no question got the better roster, the more important fighters. All the important fighters
Yeah.
are in the UFC. However, when they put on such weak cards and put them on pay-per-view, uh, it gives Bellator a chance to get right into the game really fast, I think. And I think this idea of going head-to-head against the UFC, very smart.
Yeah, at this point they can make it work. And I mean, I would say this. If you only watched the UFC pay-per-view card, it gave you fun value. Like it was fast all the way through. It was
Yeah,
over quick. It was a bunch of quick short fights, a bunch of fun fights, but you could get a lot more out of the evening if you were switching around. Like there was a lot of fun stuff going on that was really good quality, and the quality of those first two fights on the UFC card were not. I mean, like they were fast. They were fast fights, and so it's easy for fans to look at them and be like, "Oh," and they were awesome fights. But it wasn't anything that you couldn't also get by watching the Bellator card or watching the World Series of Fighting card if that
yeah.
was where you
One thing
wanted to
that
go.
really surprised me in the analysis I saw, I think Dave Meltzer sticks out, of the viewing patterns the last time Bellator went head-to-head with the UFC. People were not flipping back. They picked one channel or the other. Both did fairly strong numbers, but they weren't flipping back and forth. And then with this one, since it's a pay-per-view, I'm very curious how many pay-per-view viewers then flipped back over to Bellator. So just it will be interesting to see, but definitely on the Twitter and among the hardcore fans and writers, Bellator was definitely holding its own, and I think Scott Coker can hold his head up high. I mean, it's all going to depend on the ratings as far as the business is concerned, but as far as the aura of big event, Bellator held their own, and they came out. And it's the other big difference is the UFC didn't promote shit that was coming down the pipeline. They've got a big fight at UFC 181 with Hendricks Lawler rematch and the Pettis Melendez title fight coming off the Ultimate Fighter. They didn't promote that. They didn't promote the fight night Edgar versus Swanson coming up, and Bellator had time to announce their they had a real nice presentation where the lineup for the headliners for the next three cards came out and faced off. When you're getting mileage out of somebody like Bobby Lashley versus James Thompson, which is going to be on one of those cards, that's awesome. If you can
Yeah.
milk that fight for anything, then
Yeah,
you know what you're doing.
I mean, the thing was, like, they crammed a full recap of their last event and an announcement of the next event into that card. So it wasn't just like, you know, oh, here's a little bit of what we're. I mean, they are giving you the assumption that you're not watching everything they're doing, but they want to keep you up on it and like help you build the narrative of what they're doing.
Exactly, and that
That's
and
just
that's
smart.
that's just smart and good promotion. And the UFC is so spread out around the world and trying so many different things and put on so many cards that they just don't have time to breathe or plan or focus. So I would give Coker the Promoter of the Night award. But time will tell. We'll see if he can draw the numbers and make Bellator a success. I think it's good for the sport to have more excitement, and good for the UFC to have more competition, and just a win-win-win all around. So that's our show. Thanks, Zane. And you can give us a like on the video, subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube, follow Zane on Twitter at TheZaneSimon, follow me at KidNate, read us on BloodyElbow.com. I'll be back with Luke Thomas tomorrow for the tete-a-tete or a pajama bathrobe review. I can't remember if we've booked it for sure with Luke or not, but we'll see, and we'll know very soon. So adios, MMA aficionados. Thanks a lot, Zane.